What did you see on film from Missouri State?
From Missouri State, a defense that wants to be pressure oriented, okay? And I know, Coach, I talked about this, and you're all aware that, obviously coaching change. Who's the head coach now? His involvement in the defense seems to be pretty high. So multiple, diverse, want to put pressure on the quarterback. You can see that. I think you're going to look at, some experience that they have coming back. They lose a few pieces. And it sounds like they brought in a few transfers that they're looking that will be helpful for them. So as any first game, sometimes you never know what you're going to get. So you always got to be prepared. And hopefully we're trained well enough that whatever we get, we'll be ready to handle.
When did you first start looking at them?
Started looking at Missouri State?
Yeah.
Last April, I think that was the first time I saw film of them.
Okay. And then what's the progression from there? Just quick.
Okay, so when you know the schedule, so you do your spring football. And usually in the middle of your spring football, for us, we would do a quick analysis of what the upcoming season's opponents would look like in terms of if there's anything unique or unorthodox that we feel like we need to make sure we spend a little more time preparing for. You go through spring football, and then when spring recruiting occurs, late April and May, our analysts and GAs who aren't in the road spring recruiting will deep dive and break them all down. Our first half of the season. And then we get off the road, so they have all the data, they have all the information. We get off the road, we get into June, and in June we'll spend time breaking down our first half of the season opponents in depth. And then you get into August for fall camp, and you start installing those things in players.
Is the stupid question, but is the breakdown different than the game plan for them, or when did that start?
Well, the game plan starts when you start looking at it.
Okay.
Right. So the data that you would get, when I say data, I'm talking about they play this coverage this percent of the time, or this front this percent of the time, and then you'll have certain ideas right out the gate and say, okay, this is the kind of things we do to attack it.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's ongoing and long.
Sure.
Yep.
Do you feel like you're gonna have your full playbook available with Jalen's back, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we talked about it before. I know in other meetings that we've had here, at least in this football season. One of the advantages of having so many players coming back and returning is that you have, and it's a credit to our players, because we do things, and we could adjust and adapt and tweak so easily, and they just go, okay, got you, go check, let's do it, makes sense, right? Or hey, well, let's go back and do this. Remember we did this 2 springs ago? Yeah, I remember that. Okay, great. And so, yeah, we have access to all of it.
Daniel Highshot comes back. What are kind of the expectations you have for him? And I guess the running back room as a whole.
Pound the rock. That's the expectation for the running back room. I told those guys, and this applies to all of our offensive skill players, we want to see if we have erasers. Did I talk about that in here before? Erasers? Okay, the eraser is the guy who's got the ball in his hand and has the ability to erase a bad block or a bad play call and make something happen. And when you look at high-level football and teams that are really good, you look at football at the next level, there's erasers all over the field. And some people don't notice it because it might be a gain of -1 that turns into a gain of 5, but that's pretty significant. It's easy to see a highlight where a guy goes for 50, right? But it's those little moments that keep us on schedule that I'm really looking forward to from a running back room.
Does how well Cole Ballard's done in the fall give you more freedom with Jason to do things with him?
Yeah, we've talked before about, our best players will always going to find creative ways to put them on the field. So that applies to all position groups. But he's developing really nicely, fall camp.
We saw Keaton Quebec on the depth chart yesterday, and I know that's largely for special teams reasons, but what did he do to kind of impress you guys on the offensive side?
What did Keaton do to impress us this fall camp to get himself on the depth chart?
Yeah.
The same thing that anyone that's on that depth chart has. They've been very reliable, and they've been very dependable. He's practiced, he's grit through uncomfortableness, right through fall camp, dove right in and wanting to learn the playbook. He's tough. He wants to be physical. Those kind of attributes show up on special teams a lot. And he's allowing himself to really diversify his skill set as a player and learn positions beyond just playing an X or just that, this or that. He's really wanting to take that on. And of course, physically being able to do that.
For you guys in week 1 as an offensive coordinator, what are some of the things that you look for to make you feel confident going into a big week 2 game?
Well, you want to support and reinforce your thoughts of what you think you're going to be good at, right? The things that you think you're going to be well at, right? And you go play a game against somebody else, because how long has this been? You know what I mean? How many months since you played another team? And you finally get to line up against somebody else and does what you hypothesize, right? Here we go way back to when we learned in elementary school the scientific method, right? Is that what they call it, right? You hypothesize what you think you're going to be able to execute well. And you never really know that until you start playing games. Now, experience and doing a lot of really good reps in fall camp and spring football certainly can help you form that hypothesis. So you're looking to go out there and execute well the things that you believe your players to execute well. It's a balancing act. I had someone ask me before about, do you worry about showing things? Do you worry about doing this? As far as we're concerned, we don't save anything. Every game is the most important game. So guns a-blazing, if you will. So when you ask about the open playbook, yes, 100%, right? Because you have to play to win the game. And we're going to have to play well. It's a good opponent we have coming.
With that kind of philosophy, I mean, how much pressure does that put on you to just sort of generate new things on a week-by-week basis to replenish what you've used?
Well, okay, that's a great question. And you've heard me say this before. You have to evolve week to week. You have to, right? Because your personnel could change week to week. Who you match up against could change week to week. One week you might feel really good about how your receivers match up outside, and the next week you might not. Or maybe it's in the box or whatever it is. And so you have to be able to sit there and say, okay, we don't like this matchup, or we do like this matchup. What kind of things are we going to do to exploit? So you have to evolve week to week. So I won't use the word pressure. I feel like that's our job, right? Like we should never get bored as a coaching staff coming up with ways to make sure that we're moving the football down the field and letting our players do what they do well, right? And so you have to continue to be creative, and I think it really starts with the staff that I get to work with. There's 10 guys in that room that are all high-level dudes and bring a lot to the table, right, in regards to thinking about that stuff and ideas perhaps with schemes, or more importantly to us, ideas with our personnel. What are we doing well? What could we do more of or less of?
Andy, I saw on the depth chart it was Casey or Cardell. I mean, you got a pretty deep group there, and has Trevor had a good camp?
Awesome camp. All three of those tight ends had a fantastic camp. It's going to be a huge advantage for us as a football team to have three tight ends that are really good, and a good backfield group, and a group of receivers that we've talked about before, and some depth. And what a great, awesome, I'm not going to use the word problem, but I'll say it, but what a great problem or challenge to figure out ways to use all these chess pieces creatively. It's a lot of fun.
Is there an ideal play number for you guys? I know it was low 60s last year with some of the rule changes could go down. Is there a kind of target number that you're going for each and every game?
No, it's hard to go into a game and say the goal is to have this many snaps, right? It's how many ever it's necessary, right? Or how many you have. I think what you want to get to the point of is at the end of the day, the number one stat is your points per possession on both sides of the ball. So when we have the ball, we need to score. How many ever plays that takes, right? Okay, so. But no, when we've talked at length about the rule changes and how that would maybe potentially impact the game, and when you look, there's a spectrum still, right? It seemed to be, at least in week 0, that there was a few less, statistically speaking, but, right, you've heard me say before, statistics lie and liars use statistics. So, over the course of a season, when you get a lot of snaps to really evaluate that, to see how much it's really shaving off, I did see some people jokingly say, yeah, we took out all this time, but it was about 7 minutes more commercials, so, right, whatever, right, but we're just going to play however many it takes, because in the past we've had snaps where games we're playing 100 snaps, we've had some we're playing 50. Whatever we got to make sure that we're just capitalizing on how many of our opportunities we get to get the ball.
If things go well and it's third, fourth quarter, is there an itch to get a bunch of guys in game 1? Does that enter your mind? Do you want to try to get a taste for especially some of the younger guys?
Well, when you talk about either being up or behind,
right,
a amount to feel like you'd want to rotate guys in, you want to make sure that the people who are going to play have earned the right to go on the field and play. And one of the things we talk about is that we're not just going to be this participation deal where you get to just play because you're on the roster. You got to earn it. I mean, you earn those things because you're out there playing and you're practicing, right, to do that. So, to answer your question, yes, you want to be able to get guys in the field and play and give them some quote-unquote live bullets to make sure that you can evaluate them and develop and all those sort of things, but you don't necessarily have a at-length plan for all that kind of stuff, because you assume every game that you play is going to be a 4-quarter plus game.
Andy, one of the true freshmen on the depth chart was Calvin Clements. What have you seen from him?
Great development for his first year of college football, right? First year of college, he was here in the spring. We sang his praises then and have continued to do that throughout this fall camp. I've seen him continue to develop, which is exciting for his future as he goes.
Anything else, Coach?
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Andy.